The colony world of Kareth was known as one of the quietest human planets in the outer systems. It was not a military world. It had no giant fleets or powerful space stations. Kareth was simply a peaceful place where humans lived, worked, and built a new future among the stars. Wide green fields covered much of the planet. Silver rivers moved slowly through long valleys. Small cities stood beside shining lakes. Farmers, engineers, teachers, and explorers lived there. For many years, nothing dangerous had ever happened on Kareth. People believed they were safe. They were wrong. On a calm morning, the sky above the main city slowly began to change. At first, no one noticed. The blue sky became slightly darker. A few citizens looked up and thought clouds were forming. But they were not clouds. They were ships. Far above the atmosphere, massive dark shapes slowly appeared in orbit. Then more ships arrived, and more. Within minutes, the peaceful sky of Kareth was filled with hundreds of enormous warships. The Dravok Dominion had arrived. Inside the central command center of the colony, alarms suddenly exploded across every screen. Red warning lights flashed across the room. Technicians rushed between control panels. Military officers stared at the large holographic display in shock. Commander Elena Ward, the leader of the colony defense forces, stepped quickly toward the main screen. "What is happening?" she asked. One of the sensor officers spoke quickly, his voice shaking. "Unknown fleet detected." "Correction," enemy fleet confirmed. The holographic map zoomed outward. Everyone in the room went silent. The Dravok fleet was enormous. Thousands of ships surrounded the planet like a dark metal storm. Some ships were as large as cities. Others carried heavy weapon systems designed for planetary attack. Elena slowly crossed her arms. "How many?" she asked. The officer checked the sensors again. "More than we can count, Commander." Another officer looked at the incoming signal reports. "They are charging weapons." Outside the command center, people in the city had begun to notice the strange shadows moving across the sky. Children stopped playing in the streets. Workers stepped outside buildings. Citizens stared upward as the sun slowly disappeared behind dark shapes in orbit. Fear spread quickly. Within minutes, emergency sirens began to echo across the entire city. People ran toward shelters. Shuttles lifted from landing platforms trying to reach safer locations. But it was already too late. The first Dravok attack began without warning. Bright red beams of energy shot down from orbit. A defensive tower on the edge of the city exploded into fire. Moments later, another beam struck the planetary shield generator. The explosion shook the ground like an earthquake. Inside the command center, alarms screamed. "Network killing," one technician shouted. Elena watched the tactical map carefully. The colony defense systems were trying to respond. Missile batteries fired into orbit. Small defense fighters launched from underground hangars. But the Dravok fleet was simply too large. Human ships were destroyed within seconds. Defense cannons were hit one after another. The entire battle lasted only minutes. Soon the defense network was gone. Kareth was now completely exposed. A deep mechanical voice suddenly echoed through every communication system on the planet. It came from the Dravok flagship. The alien commander was broadcasting a message to every human on Kareth. The voice was cold and emotionless. "Humans of Kareth, your world now belongs to the Dravok Dominion." The transmission paused. In the command center, no one moved. Then the voice continued. "Resistance is pointless. Your defenses are already destroyed." Outside, more beams of energy struck distant cities. Smoke began rising across the horizon. The alien commander spoke again. "Surrender immediately, and your extinction will be quick." The message ended. Silence filled the command center. Everyone slowly looked toward Commander Elena Ward. She stood perfectly still. Her eyes remained fixed on the large holographic display of the enemy fleet. For a moment, it truly looked hopeless. Kareth had only a small defense force. No nearby human fleets could arrive in time. The nearest military base was several star systems away. Even if help was coming, it would arrive far too late. One of the younger officers spoke quietly. "Commander, what do we do?" Elena did not answer immediately. Instead, she slowly walked toward a small communication panel at the center of the room. It was old. Older than most of the equipment in the command center. Very few people even knew it was there. She opened a protective cover and revealed a single silver button. The officer looked confused. "What is that?" Elena stared at the device for a moment. Then she finally spoke. A signal. The officer frowned. A signal to who? Elena pressed a code into the console. The machine hummed. High above the planet Kareth, the strange lights continued falling through the sky. Thousands of bright flames cut across the dark clouds like burning stars. Inside the Dravok flagship, alien commanders watched the sensor screens carefully. At first they believed the objects were pieces of space debris or natural meteors, but something about them felt wrong. The objects were not falling randomly. They were moving in perfect lines. Perfect formation. One Dravok officer spoke with confusion in his deep mechanical voice. These objects are controlled. Another officer quickly studied the data. Energy readings detected. Artificial technology. The alien commander narrowed his glowing eyes. Prepare interception weapons. Outside, the Dravok fleet quickly responded. Several warships turned their heavy cannons toward the falling lights. Massive plasma beams fired upward into the atmosphere. Explosions flashed across the sky. But something unexpected happened. The falling lights did not break apart. Instead, glowing energy shields appeared around them. The plasma blasts scattered harmlessly against the shields. The Dravok officers stared in disbelief. What are these things? On the surface of Kareth, the humans inside the last city were also watching the sky. At first, they thought the planet was under another orbital attack. But the lights looked different. They were too small to be ships, too fast to be missiles. Commander Elena Ward stood in the command center, watching the holographic display. The falling objects were getting closer. Her officers stared at the screens with growing shock. Commander, there are thousands of them. Another technician added quickly. Atmospheric entry confirmed. Impact in 2 minutes. Outside the city, Dravok ground forces were already moving across the battlefield. Heavy alien walkers marched through the destroyed defense lines. Armored vehicles rolled across broken roads. They were preparing to attack the final human city. But suddenly the alien soldiers began looking upward. The sky above them burned with bright streaks of light. The falling objects grew larger. The air itself seemed to scream as they tore through the atmosphere. The Dravok commanders sent new orders across their army network. Target the falling objects. Destroy them before landing. Alien anti-air cannons fired upward. Hundreds of energy blasts filled the sky. But the falling lights moved too fast. Each object was surrounded by a bright protective shield that glowed white and blue. The Dravok weapons could not stop them. Inside one of the burning objects, a human soldier sat quietly inside a metal drop suit. His name was Sergeant Adrian Cole. His suit shook violently as it rushed through the atmosphere. Bright fire surrounded the metal shell. Warning lights blinked across his visor display. But Adrian did not look worried. He had done this many times before. His voice came calmly through the squad communication channel. All Skyfall units report status. Several voices answered immediately. Unit 12 ready. Unit 8 stable. Unit 21 entering final descent. Dozens of human soldiers spoke one after another. They were falling together. Thousands of them. A female voice spoke through the channel. Enemy anti-air fire detected. Adrian looked at the radar display inside his helmet. Bright red signals filled the screen. Dravok defense weapons were trying to shoot them down. Adrian smiled slightly. Let them try. Outside the drop suits, plasma blasts continued to explode in the sky. But the Skyfall suits were built for war. Their shields absorbed the energy and pushed forward. Inside the command center on Kareth, the human officers watched the sensors in shock. The falling objects were slowing down. They were changing direction. They were not crashing randomly. They were targeting specific locations across the battlefield. Enemy bases, Dravok walker formations, heavy weapon platforms. The young officer beside Elena whispered in amazement. They're choosing their landing zones. Elena nodded slowly. Yes? He looked at her again. Who are they? Elena answered quietly. The Skyfall Marines. The officer had heard stories about them before. But most people believed they were only legends. Special soldiers trained for orbital warfare. Warriors who could enter a battlefield directly from space. Few people had ever actually seen them. Until now, back in the sky, the falling drop suits suddenly changed shape. Small mechanical panels opened across their sides. Powerful stabilizer wings of blue energy appeared. The suits slowed dramatically as they reached lower atmosphere. Adrian Cole spoke again through the communication network. All units, prepare for landing. The soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons. Each suit calculated the perfect landing point. Outside, the ground of Kareth rushed upward. Dravok soldiers aimed their weapons at the sky. Thousands of alien troops waited below. They believed the first Skyfall soldiers had landed, and the battlefield of Kareth was already changing. The Dravok ground army had expected an easy fight. Their massive walkers, armored vehicles, and laser weapons had made short work of the colony's defenses. But now, the humans had appeared from the sky, and nothing was going according to plan. The alien troops scrambled in panic. They had never seen humans fall from orbit and survive. Every landing caused destruction. Walkers were crushed, vehicles exploded, and alien soldiers fell to perfectly timed attacks. From the command bunker, Commander Elena Ward watched in tense silence. Her holographic display showed human squads advancing across the battlefield in perfect coordination. "They're organized," she said quietly. "Every move is planned, every strike calculated." A young officer beside her shook his head. "But how? We barely have enough soldiers to defend one city, and they've brought thousands." Elena did not answer immediately. She knew the answer, but it was almost impossible for anyone else to understand. Humanity did not fight like other species. Their courage, their ingenuity, and their willpower made them unpredictable. And that was exactly what terrified the Dravok. On the battlefield, Sergeant Adrian Cole led a group of Skyfall Marines toward an enemy weapon depot. The Dravok had set up a heavy energy cannon that could destroy half a city in a single shot. It was defended by dozens of alien troops and a pair of massive walkers. Adrian raised his hand. "On my mark," he said calmly. The soldiers activated their energy wings and jumped from high walls, gliding silently into the enemy ranks. Within seconds, pulse rifles fired. Energy grenades exploded, and the Dravok forces were in chaos. The walkers fell first, immobilized by precise strikes to their joints. Alien soldiers screamed as squads of Skyfall Marines tore through their formations like lightning. The Dravok commander on the ground shouted orders in panic. "Reinforce the weapon station. Stop the humans." But reinforcements were too late. Another human squad had already landed behind the Dravok lines. They targeted supply vehicles and communication towers, cutting the enemy's ability to organize. Every move by the Dravok was anticipated, every counterattack neutralized. Adrian Cole smiled beneath his visor as he watched the enemy retreat. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. Meanwhile, high above the city, small human drop pods continued to enter the atmosphere. Each pod contained soldiers ready to strike critical points, missile depots, command centers, and weapon platforms. Unlike traditional warfare, humans attacked with speed and precision. They never fought in predictable patterns. The Dravok fleet above reacted by unleashing energy barrages, but the pod's shields absorbed most of the fire. A few were hit, but the soldiers inside emerged almost unscathed, their combat suits repairing minor damage automatically. On the battlefield, chaos reigned. Alien troops trained for domination found themselves retreating, cornered by enemies who had appeared from the sky seemingly out of nowhere. Panic spread among their ranks. Their confidence, which had dominated the outer colonies for decades, was shattered in minutes. Elena's eyes narrowed. She spotted a critical point in the enemy formation, a massive Dravok walker heading straight for the city center. "If that reaches the energy shield generator, the city will fall," she said. "We have to stop it." She called Adrian on the comm link. "Cole, target the walker. Take it down before it reaches the generator." "Copy that, Commander," Adrian replied. He turned to his squad. "You know the drill. Move fast, strike hard, no mercy." The soldiers leapt from the walls of a ruined building, gliding over the battlefield with their energy wings. Every step, every movement was precise. They struck the walker's legs first, disabling its mobility. Then they fired concentrated plasma rounds at its main weapon systems. The massive machine collapsed in a storm of fire and sparks. The Dravok commander on the ground roared in frustration. "Impossible. How can humans—" He never finished his sentence. A squad of Skyfall Marines had appeared behind him. Within seconds, he and his officers were captured. As the battle raged, civilians began emerging from shelters. They had been hiding in fear, but now they saw the humans fighting for them. Some joined the human squads to guide them through the ruined city streets, helping clear debris and identify threats. Elena watched the live feeds and allowed herself a brief smile. Humanity's strength was not just in their weapons or technology. It was in their ability to inspire courage, to act with intelligence and to never give up. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans always found a way to fight. On the alien fleet above, confusion spread among the officers. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought the battlefield of Kareth was chaos. Smoke rose in thick clouds from destroyed buildings and shattered roads. Alien soldiers ran in confusion. Massive Dravok walkers lay in ruins. Yet the humans pressed forward, moving with precision and speed that seemed impossible. Commander Elena Ward watched from the command center, her eyes focused on the screens. Her pulse was steady, but deep inside, she knew the Dravok would not give up so easily. They never did. Above the city, a new signal appeared on the sensors. A massive object was leaving orbit, a warship unlike any the humans had faced before. The Dravok fleet, sensing victory slipping away, had activated their ultimate weapon. "What is that?" a young officer asked, staring at the holographic display. Elena's face hardened. Something big. Something deadly. The massive object descended slowly at first, then accelerated toward the planet. From its hull, a mechanical monstrosity emerged, a war machine the size of a skyscraper. Its body gleamed with black armor plates, its legs ending in enormous claws. Multiple cannon turrets rotated across its shoulders and arms, each one glowing red. On the ground, Dravok soldiers cheered. They believed this war machine would crush the humans and finally end the battle. It stomped forward, each step shaking the earth. The ground cracked beneath it. Smaller walkers and armored vehicles followed its lead, moving like extensions of its deadly power. Adrian Cole, leading a squad of Skyfall Marines, saw the colossal machine approaching. His jaw tightened. "That's huge. Bigger than anything we've faced before," one of his soldiers said. His voice was tense but controlled. Adrian didn't reply. Instead, he scanned the battlefield. Human squads were scattered, but every group moved toward a target. They would not retreat. Humans never retreated. The massive machine raised its arm, firing a concentrated energy blast at a group of Marines. They dived to the ground, barely avoiding death. Buildings collapsed in fire and sparks. The Dravok soldiers around the war machine laughed, certain of victory. Elena spoke softly into the comlink. "All units, do not panic. Adjust strategy. Focus on mobility. Strike the weak points." Her orders were calm, precise, and confident. Her soldiers trusted her, and their discipline was unmatched. The Skyfall Marines began to circle the war machine, staying out of range of its massive weapons. They fired plasma grenades at its joints, but the machine barely slowed. Its armor absorbed most of the attacks. It was a perfect weapon of destruction, designed to end entire armies in a single day. A young officer in the bunker whispered to Elena, "Commander, it's unstoppable." Elena shook her head. "Nothing is unstoppable. Humans always find a way." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, another human squad had discovered the war machine's control systems. One of them, a technician named Lara Voss, climbed onto a nearby destroyed building, hacking into the Dravok communication network. She sent a pulse into the war machine's sensors. It faltered for a moment, just enough. Adrian saw the opportunity. Squads Alpha and Beta strike now. Hit the legs and the back armor. Hundreds of humans moved like a single living organism. They fired plasma rifles, energy grenades, and laser-guided missiles. The machine staggered, but it did not fall. A Dravok officer screamed orders, but no one could hear him over the explosions and the cries of soldiers. Their ultimate weapon was being challenged, and for the first time, it seemed vulnerable. Then Elena saw it. On the edge of the battlefield, high above, a new signal appeared. Another drop pod was entering the atmosphere. Its size dwarfed all previous pods. It glowed with intense energy. Whoever was inside was not an ordinary Skyfall Marine. The Dravok ground army noticed it too. Their sensors screamed warnings. The massive war machine paused for a moment, scanning the skies. Its weapons turned toward the descending pod. Inside, a single figure sat calmly, encased in a golden combat suit far larger and more powerful than the Skyfall Marines below. Captain Marcus Hale, leader of the Skyfall Legion, was descending alone. His armor shimmered with plasma energy. His weapon systems were unmatched. Adrian whispered into his comlink. "That's Captain Hale, he's coming." The humans below felt a surge of hope. The Dravok soldiers felt terror. The massive war machine stomped toward the city, firing everything it had. Entire blocks were destroyed. But Captain Hale's pod pierced the energy shields. dropping straight onto the battlefield. His landing created a shockwave that threw alien soldiers to the ground. Elena clenched her fists. "This is the turning point," she said. On the ground, human squads attacked relentlessly. They coordinated with Captain Hale's arrival. Each strike was sharper, faster, deadlier. The war machine fired wildly, unable to target multiple humans at once. Its armor was saying. The battlefield of Kareth was burning. Smoke and fire filled the streets. Alien soldiers fled in confusion. Dravok walkers, once symbols of unstoppable power, lay shattered across the ruined city. Human squads moved like shadows, precise and relentless, cutting through the enemy ranks. But the largest Dravok war machine still stood, its massive claws tearing through the ground, its energy cannons firing without pause. High above the planet, the final human signal activated. It was the largest drop pod ever deployed, a pod so massive it cast a shadow over the entire battlefield. Its heat shields glowed bright orange as it entered the atmosphere. Inside, the legendary Captain Marcus Hale prepared. His golden combat suit shimmered with plasma energy. His helmet's HUD scanned the battlefield below. "This is it," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Time to finish this." Outside, the Dravok fleet detected the descending pod. Alien sensors screamed warnings. "Target the pod," shouted a Dravok officer. "Destroy it before it lands." Energy beams shot into the sky. They struck the drop pod with full force. Sparks flew. Heat shields flared. For a moment, it seemed impossible that the pod could survive. Inside, Captain Hale remained calm. His suit adjusted automatically, stabilizing the pod mid-fall. Thrusters fired, slowing the descent. He gripped the control handles. "Steady, steady," he muttered. The ground approached quickly. The Dravok war machine lifted its massive arms to intercept the pod, preparing to crush it as it landed. Captain Hale activated the pod's final descent boosters. With a deafening roar, the pod shot downward, piercing through the war machine's shielded energy field. The impact shook the battlefield. Buildings trembled. Streets cracked. Dust and smoke rose in giant clouds. The massive war machine staggered, its energy system sparking violently. Captain Hale emerged from the pod, stepping onto the battlefield like a force of nature. His golden armor gleamed under the red glow of fires and explosions. Plasma energy crackled across his blade, ready for battle. The Dravok war machine focused on him, raising its massive claws. Its sensors locked on. Its voice boomed mechanically. "Human detected. Target for termination." Captain Hale did not move. He took a single step forward. His blade ignited with a humming sound that echoed across the battlefield. Then, in one fluid motion, he leapt toward the war machine. Energy blasts from the machine tried to stop him, but Hale moved faster than the eye could follow. Sparks flew as his blade struck the armor. The massive claws tried to swipe him away, but he jumped and flipped, striking weak points in perfect precision. On the ground, human squads cheered as they saw their legendary captain in action. Inspired by his courage, they moved with renewed vigor, striking every enemy unit they could reach. The Dravok soldiers began to panic. Their ultimate weapon, the machine that had terrified entire planets, was now struggling against a single human. Adrian Cole led his squad forward, flanking the machine from behind. Plasma grenades detonated at key joints, weakening the mechanical titan. The alien commander screamed through the battlefield, giving frantic orders. But nothing worked. Their strongest weapon was falling apart. Captain Hale's blade struck the machine's central power core. Sparks exploded. Smoke poured from vents. The machine shook violently, losing balance. Hale leapt backward as the Titan collapsed with a thunderous crash, sending debris flying in all directions. Alien soldiers screamed, scattering across the battlefield. Elena Ward watched the scene unfold on her monitors. Her hands trembled slightly, but she smiled. Humanity's might was clear for all to see. This is why we never surrender," she whispered. The Dravok fleet above began to retreat. Their confidence shattered, they pulled back from Kareth, leaving their ground troops behind. The city was saved for now, but the battlefield was littered with ruins and smoke. Captain Hale stood atop the fallen war machine, surveying the scene. His armor glowed with residual energy from the battle. Around him, human soldiers moved carefully, securing the area and assisting civilians. Adrian Cole approached Hale, awe in his voice. "Captain, you did it." Hale shook his head. "We did it. Humanity fights as one. That is why we win." Below, civilians slowly emerged from hiding, cheering and waving. Children ran toward the soldiers, safe at last. Families embraced, tears streaming down their faces. Elena watched from the bunker, taking a deep breath. The city was battered but alive. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. High above, the remaining human drop pods finished their descent. Soldiers regrouped, standing on the battlefield in perfect formation. Their arrival from orbit had turned the tide of the war. The Dravok had underestimated humanity. They had believed raw power and fear woo. The battlefield of Kareth was quiet now. Smoke rose in slow curling columns. Fire still burned across the city, but the alien threat had vanished. The Dravok ground forces that had survived were retreating, running toward their remaining ships. Their confidence had shattered, their power broken. Commander Elena Ward stepped outside the bunker and looked across the ruined streets. Buildings were cracked, roads were shattered, and the city bore scars of war. But humans had survived. They had won. On the battlefield, Captain Marcus Hale stood atop the remains of the colossal Dravok war machine. His golden armor glowed faintly under the pale sunlight, streaked with smoke and ash. Around him, Skyfall Marines and other human soldiers moved among the civilians, securing the area, assisting the injured, and clearing debris. For the first time in weeks, the people of Kareth could breathe. Fear gave way to relief. Children ran toward the humans, smiling for the first time since the attack began. Families embraced soldiers who had risked their lives to protect them. Adrian Cole approached Captain Hale, his armor scratched but intact. "Captain, the city, it's saved. We actually did it." Hale shook his head slowly, looking over the battlefield. "We did more than survive. We sent a message." Elena joined them, her eyes scanning the horizon. "A message to who?" she asked. Hale smiled faintly. "To the galaxy. To anyone who thinks humans are weak. Today they learned something important. Humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity doesn't rely only on numbers or technology. Humanity fights for each other. And when we do, the impossible becomes reality." Across the city, civilians were gathering. Some were helping with reconstruction. Others were sharing stories of how they survived. Every human who had hidden in fear now saw the Skyfall Marines not as warriors, but as protectors, heroes who had descended from the sky to turn the tide of war. Elena looked at the thousands of soldiers who had fought so bravely. They came from the sky, and no one saw it coming. "Exactly," Hale said. "The enemy believed this planet was defenseless. They thought they could crush us, but they didn't know humans. They didn't know what we are capable of when we fight together." Nearby, Sergeant Adrian Cole knelt beside a group of children, helping them rebuild a small play area destroyed during the battle. "We're not just soldiers," he said quietly. "We protect what we love. That's what makes us strong." The remaining Dravok forces finally activated their ships and lifted off the planet. Their massive fleet glowed in the sky, preparing to retreat. But they did so in silence, no longer confident, no longer arrogant. Humanity had taught them a lesson they would not forget. From orbit, other human fleets were arriving. They had responded to the signal Elena had sent earlier. Shuttles, fighters, and transport ships descended slowly toward Kareth. But the human soldiers on the ground were already in control. The arrival of additional forces was a reassurance, not a necessity. The first strike had already changed everything. Hale stood surveying the scene. "Look at them," he said. "Every human here, every soldier, every civilian. They're proof that no matter how powerful the enemy, we find a way. We adapt, we fight, and we protect each other." Elena nodded. "It's more than just victory. It's hope." The humans began to gather together, forming a line of solidarity across the battlefield. Soldiers, engineers, civilians, children, and elders side by side. Together, they had faced the Dravok Empire and won. Together, they had turned the impossible into reality. Hale raised his voice, projecting across the city with his armor's communication system. "People of Kareth, today we faced a great enemy. They came to destroy us, to take everything we had. But we stood together. We fought together. And we survived. Today we show the galaxy the strength of humanity." Cheering erupted across the city. People clapped, shouted, and wept tears of relief and joy. Children waved at the soldiers. Families embraced. The battle had ended, but its meaning stretched far beyond the ruins of the city. Elena looked at Hale. "You think the galaxy will remember this?" Hale smiled faintly. "The galaxy will never forget. Humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to protect, to inspire, and to show the impossible is never out of reach. That's our message. High above, the sky was clear now. Sunlight broke through the smoke, reflecting off the golden armor of the soldiers who had fallen from the sky. It was a symbol of hope, power, and courage, a reminder that humanity could arrive from anywhere, even from the heavens themselves. Adrian Cole looked at Hale. "What now, Captain?" Hale turned his gaze toward the horizon, toward the stars. "Now we prepare. Other worlds will face threats. Other enemies will think they can take what isn't theirs. And when they do, humanity will be ready. We